Acts of the Apostles, chapter 26. Today we're going to explore a chapter that vibrantly illustrates transformation, divine purpose, and the boldness to declare the truth in the face of adversity. In this chapter, we see Paul standing before King Agrippa and boldly recounting his journey from a devout persecutor of Christians to one of Christ's most passionate apostles. This chapter isn't just about Paul's defense. It's a powerful narrative about redemption, the unyielding strength of faith, and the call to be a light to others. As we walk through this story, let's reflect on the deep lessons it offers us and how they resonate in our lives today. Paul's bold testimony and defense. So the chapter begins with Paul making his defense before King Agrippa, who is familiar with Jewish customs and laws. Paul acknowledges Agrippa's understanding of Jewish matters and uses this as an opportunity to speak freely. He recounts his life before his conversion, describing himself as a Pharisee who was deeply committed to upholding the strictest aspects of Jewish law. Paul shares how he relentlessly persecuted Christians, believing it was his duty to oppose them. So consider that. This is really interesting. This opening teaches us about the power of a testimony rooted in transparency. Paul's willingness to speak about his past, no matter how damning, shows his confidence in the transformative power of grace. It also encourages us not to shy away from sharing our own stories, no matter how flawed they may be, because it's often those very moments of brokenness that demonstrate God's transformative power. I'm going to take a moment here and share something with you it's about this chapter. This is the third time that I've spoken this through. And I turned to my wife and I said, I used to be Paul. And I just realized that. I was Saul. I was a non-believer, and I said happy holidays and things like that. I grew up in the Catholic Church, but I always had questions. And as I've gone through from the beginning, when we started this, when I started with Matthew, and I did all four Gospels, as I was going through that, there was this really weird transformative change that occurred in me. All these questions that I had and all these doubts and the things I thought my intellect, I have an Ivy League degree, so I thought I'm so smart and, I can disprove pretty much everything. Look at all the contradictions in the Bible and, all the atheist and agnostic arguments. Boy, I knew them all. And it's really weird. I've changed completely over the last couple of months of going through this, going through all four Gospels. We've done all four on this channel now, and I've gone through them chapter by chapter. And it's interesting because, a lot of times, I don't edit any videos, so a lot of times I will just be talking and I'll say, that doesn't make sense to me, and I'll turn to my wife, and she's always sitting here with me, and I say, to her, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't get that, but I proceed, and then it's weird because later that day, somebody completely random that I've never met before will start having a conversation with me about what I was questioning, and give me inspiration to continue into the next day. These answers are coming from people that I don't know, and it's weird. It's like God is putting these people in my life to share knowledge and information to continue to inspire me to do this every day. We're doing the whole New Testament chapter by chapter, and I used to be Paul. I would argue against Christian faith, and I'd be the one that would go on social media and people would post things, and I'd be like, hey, when you understand why you don't believe in Zeus, then you'll understand why I don't believe in Jesus. And arguments like that, and I just want to be transparent. That's those are some of the arguments that I had. And, it's really weird. I have changed over the course of this. I have a friend local here in Fort Collins that owns a jewelry store, and she noticed the change, and she sent me text messages saying, when you died, I was the longest clinically documented death case on March 4th of 1992. And, she's like, you were saved then so you could come back and God could use you in certain ways. And I never really thought that through to the extent that she inspired me to. But today was just a jaw dropper for me. As I'm going through this, I turned to my wife and said, I'm Paul. I used to be Saul. Now I'm Paul. And it's just truly amazing, the transformation in my life. I'm the least likely person you would ever expect. People who have known me from the past probably are a little bit confused when they see these videos. But I want to thank God for the amazing understanding that I've gotten. And this journey on YouTube doing these videos has transformed me personally in a lot of ways. And I don't want to take all of our time up here to go deep into that. But when I say that I'm happy that you've joined me and that these are the best times, I truly mean that. And I hope you understand now that it's deeper than just those words for me. This has changed me, and I wasn't expecting that at all. I was just trying to be a YouTube guy, and I was just going to do this book like I've done other books, chapter by chapter, and give a greater understanding. And I think it was more of a challenge at first. But challenge accepted, and it's just changed me in many ways. Let's get back into the story here of Paul. This is really exciting for me. I'm enjoying the story, and I'm sorry that I stopped there. But I just wanted to share that with you because it's powerful for me. This has totally changed me. I wish I had better words to explain it to you of how drastic and amazing the change has been. But it's night and day. It's from Saul to Paul. And it's incredible. I'll share more with you in the future as things come up, but I am really thankful that you're here. Let's get back into it. The divine encounter on the road to Damascus. So Paul vividly recounts his transformative moment on the road to Damascus. As he traveled to persecute more Christians, a light brighter than the sun shone around him and his companions. Falling to the ground, Paul heard a voice say, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" It is hard for you to kick against the goads. When Paul asked, "Who are you, Lord?" the voice replied, "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting." And this encounter left Paul physically blinded, but spiritually awakened. And this encounter on the road to Damascus is pivotal. It illustrates that no one is beyond the reach of God's call. It symbolizes how God can interrupt our paths and guide us toward our true purpose. The phrase, "it is hard for you to kick against the goads," implies resisting a divine purpose or calling, showing that sometimes, even when we think we're on the right path, God may need to step in to correct us. This is a powerful reminder that God's light can break through the darkest parts of our lives, opening our eyes to a new reality. The mission and purpose. So Jesus instructs Paul to rise and stand, commissioning him as a servant and witness of what he has seen and will see. Paul is called to turn people from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God, so they may receive forgiveness and a place among those sanctified by faith. Paul obeys this heavenly vision and dedicates his life to spreading the message of Christ, despite persecution and imprisonment. So think about that. This part of Paul's testimony highlights that God's purpose for us often includes being a light to others. It's a call to action, to share that we have received what we have received, so that others can experience the same freedom and redemption. Paul's obedience to this vision, despite knowing it would lead to suffering, challenges us to think about our own willingness to fulfill our purpose. Are we willing to step out even when it costs us our comfort or reputation? I think Paul's life exemplifies that true purpose is not only about our benefit, but about bringing others to the light. Paul's unwavering conviction. So Paul continues his explanation that his obedience to the heavenly vision led him to preach repentance and faith to people from Jerusalem to the Gentiles. He acknowledges that his bold preaching is the reason the Jewish leaders seized him and tried to kill him. But Paul asserts that God has helped him to this day, enabling him to stand and testify to both small and great alike. He reiterates that he has only spoken what the prophets and Moses said would come to pass, that the Messiah would suffer, rise from the dead, and bring salvation to both Jews and Gentiles. So consider that. It's really powerful, right? This section shows that faith often requires courage. Paul's conviction to continue preaching, even in chains, demonstrates that his mission was bigger than his personal freedom or safety. This reminds us that sharing the truth may not always be met with applause. Sometimes it invites opposition. Yet Paul's courage challenges us to stay the course, to speak the truth regardless of how it's received. His faith shows us that standing for what we believe is not just an option, it's a necessity for anyone called to be a witness for Christ. King Agrippa's reaction. So King Agrippa listens intently, and at the end of Paul's testimony, he remarks, "Do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian?" Paul's response is profound. He says, "Short time or long, I pray to God that not only you, but all who are listening to me today may become what I am, except for these chains." Beautiful, powerful, and amazing. This moment shows Paul's selflessness and deep desire for others to know the hope and salvation he has experienced. Despite being a prisoner, Paul's primary focus is on the spiritual well-being of his listeners. His response to Agrippa's comment is not defensive or argumentative. It's heartfelt and genuine. In my opinion, it's beautiful. He said exactly what needed to be said, when it needed to be said. And this should encourage us to reflect on our own motivations when sharing our beliefs. Are we hoping for acknowledgement or praise, or are we truly driven by a desire to see others transformed by the same grace that has changed us? As we close this chapter, let's reflect on the journey of Paul and the lessons embedded in this powerful chapter. His story is a testament of the idea that no one is too far gone to be reached by God. Paul's boldness in sharing his story, despite his past and current hardships, inspires us to share our own journeys without fear. He shows us that being a witness is not about perfection, but about pointing others to the one who perfects us. Now, think about this. If Paul, once a fierce enemy of Christ, could become his most passionate advocate, what could happen if we allow our own lives to be transformed and shared? Are we ready to use our stories as testimonies that inspire change and hope in others? Remember, even in chains, Paul's voice carried the message, and it has been resonant through generations. Let us be inspired to speak the truth, live our faith, and let our stories be a beacon of light in a world that truly needs it. Go out today with courage and share your journey, and may you inspire others to find a way from darkness to light. Well, here we are at the end, and tomorrow I'll be back to discuss Acts of the Apostles 27, and it's going to be a beautiful end to this story. I love it, but it's not the end. We're going to continue through the remainder of the New Testament, and I think you're truly going to enjoy it. I hope you'll join me tomorrow. As I said earlier, this is my favorite part of every day, the time I get to spend with you. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Feel free to share any of these videos as inspirations on your social media or with people you love. I'd love to be able to speak with them as well, and hopefully together we can share this beautiful message. Take care of yourself, my friends. Have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you tomorrow.